Hey, welcome back to the show. President Trump has just announced a framework that gives the United States everything that they wanted in Greenland. Ilhan Omar is now under investigation, and Don Lemon comes out supporting his actions when he stormed the church with the protesters in Minnesota. That and much more coming up right now. So before we start to discuss the framework that gave the United States everything they want in Greenland, I think it's pretty important for us to talk about how we got here. Remember, President Trump was making a huge push, and he was not giving an inch, stating that he wanted Greenland. Listen to this.
What do you plan to say to European leaders in Davos when they push back on your Greenland plan?
Well, I don't think they're going to push back too much. Look, we have to have it. They have to have this done. They can protect it. Denmark, they're wonderful people. And I know the leaders are very good people, but they don't even go there. And, you know, because the boat went there 500 years ago and then left, that doesn't give you title to property. So we'll be talking about it with the various people.
So since President Trump reached an agreement, it looks like he already had a framework in mind of what it was that he was expecting to achieve while he was at Davos. Now, I think it's very important for everybody to understand that's listening to this, to understand why he's so aggressive when it comes to acquiring Greenland, or at least having more access to it. Right now, China controls 95 to 97% of rare earth minerals in the world. 95 to 97%. That means that we rely on them to get those minerals for everything that we do here, whether it's missile technology, whether it's AI, whatever it is that we need those minerals for, which every day it appears that we need them more and more. We need to get them from China. When we were engaging with trade negotiations with China, what they did was they held that over our heads. In other words, they used that as leverage. And we, as the United States, cannot have any country holding anything over our heads like that, especially when it comes to trade. Remember, China has a $1 trillion surplus. We have billions of dollars in trade deficit. The reason China can do that is because they pretty much rape every other country when it comes to economic deals. That is the reason why we cannot do to China what we did to all these other countries in coming to an agreement that was beneficial to the United States. In several situations, more beneficial to us than it was to the trading partners. We couldn't do that with China. That's why President Trump is pushing so hard to gain access to Greenland. When he talks about our national security, it is a matter of national security. When he talks about America first, it is about America first. And I'm not defending President Trump's actions, or I'm not defending whatever action he ultimately decides to take when it comes to Greenland. What I'm telling you is that we need access to those minerals if we want to remain the singular hegemon in the world. So if you guys remember, before President Trump went to Davos, he threatened a lot of European countries that didn't support this deal with Greenland with tariffs. Listen to this.
Starting on February 1st, 2026, all of the above-mentioned countries, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, and Finland, will be charged a 10% tariff on any and all goods sent to the United States of America. On June 1st, 2026, the tariff will be increased to 25%. This tariff will be due and payable until such time as a deal is reached for the complete and total purchase of Greenland.
And if you guys remember, this prompted a bunch of emergency meetings in Europe. NATO got together. Everybody was stressing. Everybody was spazzing out. But this was always part of President Trump's plan. He comes in hard, he negotiates, and then everybody bends to his will. And I'm not sure how these international leaders, how these leaders all around the world have not yet understood that that is the art of the deal. I don't understand that. Now here's France coming out against President Trump's tariffs.
Without collective governance, cooperation gives way to relentless competition. Competition from the United States of America through trade agreements that undermine our export interests, demand maximum concessions, and openly aim to weaken and subordinate Europe, combined with an endless accumulation of new tariffs that are fundamentally unacceptable. Even more so when they are used as leverage against territorial sovereignty.
And here's some more from the EU, completely spazzing out over that threat of tariffs.
The European Union supports Denmark and the people of Greenland, and we do so united in our resolve. The measures threatened over the weekend by the United States administration will not help improve security in the Arctic. Greenland and Denmark have both made clear that Greenland is not for sale. We understand the need for Europe to take on more responsibility when it comes to defense and security, including doing more to protect the Arctic. We know that transatlantic and Arctic security can be achieved without the destabilizing impact of calling Greenland and Denmark's sovereignty into question, or through measures like tariffs. Now, I know that some will mistake our way of calm, restraint, and dialogue for weakness. They are wrong. It is the opposite. We are Europe.
Why does the EU always do that? They always want to roll their shoulders back and puff out their chest against the United States. Why didn't they do that against Russia? And remember, what Russia did was in their own backyard. But anyway, the EU is going to continue to do the same thing they always do, which is grandstand. The president had a bunch of world leaders reaching out to him, asking him why he was doing what he was doing and why he was pursuing Greenland so heavily. So here are some private messages that he exchanged with President Macron.
President Trump leaks what he says are private messages from European leaders concerned over his threats to annex Greenland. The message from French President Emmanuel Macron: I do not understand what you are doing on Greenland. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte tells Trump he is committed to finding a way forward on Greenland.
So I'll answer Macron's question or his curiosity on why it is that we're doing what we're doing in Greenland. It's a matter of national security. We cannot have China continuing to hold rare earth minerals over our head. If we are able to reach a deal where we gain access to those rare earth minerals, we will control 50% of the rare earth mineral market in the world. That's what we need. Because if we can do that, then we unshackle ourselves from China. But the Greenlanders are not having it. They want nothing to do with the United States, and they've taken to the streets to express how they feel about it. Take a look.
So Donald, we don't want to be Americans. We are Greenlanders, and we want to be in a democratic world, and we hope Americans, they will support us.
I've never met an American who thinks anything other. Greenland should be free, and Greenland should be for the Greenlanders, not for the Americans.
Look, I feel what the Greenlanders are saying. They want independence. They don't want to be part of Denmark. They don't want to be part of the United States. I get that. I understand that. But unfortunately for them, they have something that we need, that the world needs. Russia and China need that territory to control the Arctic. We need that territory to control the Arctic and for the rare earth minerals that are there. So they're stuck between a rock and a hard place right now because somebody's got to give. Somebody's got to give. And I think the United States is ultimately going to end up winning that battle. And they have. Because President Trump reached a framework with NATO where the United States is going to gain access to Greenland and get everything that they want. Now, the details of the deal have not been mentioned yet, but here's some more on that.
All right, Fox News alert out of Davos, Switzerland. Breaking right now, new information from President Trump about Greenland. Posting moments ago on Truth Social, he said, based upon a very productive meeting that I have had with the Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, we have formed the framework of a future deal with respect to Greenland and, in fact, the entire Arctic region. This solution, if consummated, will be a great one for the United States of America and all NATO nations. Based upon this understanding, and here's a big part of this, I will not be imposing the tariffs that were scheduled to go into effect on February the 1st. Watch your 401k. Additional discussions are being held concerning the Golden Dome as it pertains to Greenland. Further information will be made available as discussions progress. Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and various others, as needed, will be responsible for the negotiations. They will report directly to me. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Donald Trump, President of the United States.
President Trump did it again. He made the deal to get everything that he wanted. And in the end, it's not he gets everything that he wants. It's America gets everything it wants. Not only what it wants, but what it needs to secure our future. And I can't wait to hear what this framework looks like. Now, here's what the president was saying shortly after the framework was established and agreed upon between the United States and NATO. Take a look.
It's a deal that people jumped at. Really fantastic for the USA. Gets everything we wanted, including especially real national security and international security.
How so? Can you give us some details, please?
Well, the deal is going to be put out pretty soon. I mean, we'll see. It's right now a little bit in progress, but pretty far along. It gets us everything we needed to get.
Will the U.S. still get Greenland? Will the U.S. still get Greenland?
You know, a question that President Trump didn't answer was whether we were going to acquire Greenland. And I don't think that's going to be part of the deal. And the reason I say that is because if we would have reached that type of deal, President Trump would have been very quick to mention that to those reporters there, because I believe it would have been one of his greatest accomplishments. Remember, if we acquire Greenland, if we do that now, if we do that later, we will be the second largest country in the world. So let's go ahead and move on to Minnesota. If you guys remember last time on the episode, I showed you Don Lemon as being part of that mob that stormed that church in Minnesota. And he was very proud about it. He was interviewing that pastor in the pastor's face and then telling the pastor, you know, with all due respect, please don't push me. Yet he was this close to the pastor's face, yet the pastor spoke to him with grace and dignity, and I think that was absolutely awesome, especially since Don Lemon is an absolute douchebag. But before I show you the clips of that dirtbag, let me show you a clip of the lady who organized that protest or that storming of the church. Take a listen at her defending her actions.
Do you guys feel like perhaps maybe you went too far? I know that there was one guy
Absolutely not. Listen. I'm not going to go down this line of questioning with you. This is gaslighting. Who has gone too far is Donald Trump, Kristi Noem, J.D. Vance, and the people who run ICE.
I mean, you've got to be insane. You've got to be out of your mind. So she's saying that storming that church, having kids there cry because they were scared, a place where you go to worship, to love, for unity, she thought that was justified. So she's saying that because President Trump and J.D. Vance and everybody else is doing what they're doing, upholding the law, that justified them storming that church. How does that make any sense? But let's move on to the idiot Don Lemon. So here's the clown responding to Niki Mihaj, and all she did was post this right here that said that the world is watching.
Niki Mihaj, stop talking about for which you know nothing about. This is out of your depth, by the way, and you are a homophobic bigot. You don't care about African Americans, and you're not an African American. From what I know, you are reportedly an undocumented citizen, so you should be deported under Donald Trump's rules. Get a life. Stop being a pick-me. You should have put a pick-me doll on that damn tweet instead of a Chucky doll, because you are nothing but a pick-me. And I choose not to pick you. And so should black people, and so should gay people. Shouldn't buy your music.
So you guys saw Nicki Minaj's post, right? I mean, it was just the world is watching. Now, compare that to the rant, the hate-filled rant from Don Lemon. She's not black anymore? How is that? That she's a bigot? That she's a racist? How does that even work? So Don Lemon gets to choose who is black these days? This guy is an absolute clown. He's an absolute fool. And I'm not sure why people even watch this guy. He doesn't even report news anymore. All he does is look for sensationalism and report that because he knows that that's what people are going to look at. I seriously have to question the intellectual capacity of anybody that watches Don Lemon for anything except to laugh. Now, remember what he just said. He says she should be deported. Here he is storming a church against ICE who's deporting people, yet he's calling for her deportation. How great is the hypocrisy here? Now, I want to make a comment about something that he said. He's talking about this whole thing, this whole situation being beyond her scope. In other words, he's calling her an idiot. He's calling her ignorant. He's pretty much saying that she doesn't know anything about politics or international relations. I would love to debate Don Lemon. I would love to have an opportunity to have a stage with this guy. I'm an expert on international relations, political science, and everything else that deals with, foreign governments. I would love to have a debate with this guy to see how much he actually knows about international relations and politics. Because this guy ultimately is a clown. You know what he knows about politics and international relations? He knows whatever it is that they put on the teleprompter that he needs to read. That's all he knows. This guy doesn't have a background in any of that stuff. He's a clown. And speaking of clowns, do you remember that judge that ordered ICE that pretty much tried to handcuff him by saying that they could only do things that were within the law, which makes no sense, right? So they couldn't use any type of tear gas or anything like that to disperse the crowds? Well, that was also reversed. So now ICE can pretty much do everything they were doing before. But let's get to the good part. Ilhan Omar is now under investigation. Now, we all know, or at least we have that feeling that she is involved in all this fraud that's happened in Minnesota, especially with the connections that she has in the Somali community. But here's some more information on her investigation.
Fox News alert, Ilhan Omar under investigation after racking up millions while she was in Congress. Senior national correspondent Kevin Cork has it. What's up, Kevin?
Good to see you, my friend. What's the old saying? Follow the money? Well, that's precisely what the House Oversight Committee is doing. They are probing squad member Ilhan Omar's skyrocketing family wealth, Jesse, especially in the wake of that $9 billion, some would argue $19 billion, Somali social services fraud scandal that exploded in her district in Minnesota. The Oversight Chair, James Comer, says his team's lawyers are exploring the extraordinary step of subpoenaing Omar's spouse over his curious business practices. Republicans want to know how the Somali-born Omar and her politically connected husband Tim Minette went from being nearly broke to being worth around $30 million in just a year, according to her 2024 disclosure forms. Quoting Comer now, there are a lot of questions as to how her husband accumulated so much wealth over the past 2 years. It's not possible. It's not.
Now, I want to make a comment about this. First of all, going from $50,000 to $30 million is insane. But it's not unheard of, because we know what the politicians do. The politicians continue to play the game. They continue to play you, and they continue to play me. Well, I guess they continue to play me because I really don't have control over the laws that are made in this country. But it's ridiculous that they continue to play these games. Now, I hope you guys are paying attention there in the end, because Ilhan Omar talks a lot about white people and them being white supremacists and having this superiority complex and how white people are just so terrible. But did you see that her husband is white? What does that tell you at home? What does that tell you? That tells you that she's playing the game. She's playing to that base that loves what she does. She's playing everybody that listens to anything that she says. That's what she's doing. It's the game of political rhetoric. And for some reason, it continues to work. All right, that's the show for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, stay balanced.